Blog Talk Radio.
Provided by bensound.com. Welcome, everyone, to today's Earth Energy Forecast Show on this Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. Thank you for joining us today, or if you're listening later in the podcast. Today, I'm going to do something different and take callers after I share my words of wisdom, quote unquote, for these times. I entitled this show End Times and the End of Our Worlds because I do believe we are in the end times, the shift of ages, call it what you will, but we are in this time of great change. And our worlds, as we have known them, are ending. And I'm sure many of you listening today can relate to that. So before we go into that, I thought I'd just give you a quick update in the skies and on Earth. It was reported today that Jupiter's red spot is coming unraveled. The red spot is thought to be a gigantic storm, and scientists are questioning whether Jupiter's magnetic field may be in the process of a reversal. Sound familiar? It should if you're a regular listener on Earth Energy Forecast. The sun, however, is quieting down, at least on the Earth-facing side. Earlier last week, it was very active. There were some sunspots that produced some geomagnetic storms, but now they are on the far side of the sun, and they are still spewing out some energy, but nothing to worry about here on Earth at the present time. Speaking of Earth, Oren Lyons, the chief and faithkeeper of the Onondaga Nation and environmentalist, says we have about 10 to 15 years left on Earth if we don't do something soon and we continue in the way we have been. Well, we wouldn't have to worry about the Earth catastrophe cycle that Ben Davison discussed on one of our shows. He and Douglas Vogt say the next cycle is due in about 30 years or less, give or take, So if you'd like more information about that, just listen to Ben's interview in the archives or look him up on Suspicious Observers channel on YouTube, or you can go to my YouTube channel because I make a YouTube of each show. Also happening on Earth, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service released a summary of its report earlier this month that estimates 1 million plant and animal species are threatened with extinction due to man's devastation of the planet. Those were my words, due to man's devastation of the planet, but, due to that and the cycles and climate change, and let's just start throwing all the terms in here of everything that's happening all at once. Need I say more about that? No. We are in times of great change. My heart goes out to all those who have been affected by the path of these violent storms and tornadoes throughout the U.S. and those that are still on its path because it's still happening now. These violent storms will continue, people. We are in these times, and this was predicted. Here's some more good news from the skies. Well, anyways, it's what the astrology is telling us. And as we've talked about before, the astrology of these times confirms what we are experiencing in our outer and inner worlds. the much talked about Saturn Pluto conjunction. Currently, they're only 2 degrees away from each other, along with the South Node, all of which are moving retrograde. The nodes always move backwards. In Capricorn, explains much of what's happening. Capricorn is the sign of government, discipline, authority, persistence, responsibility, and professionalism. It represents the structure of society and the structure of our individual lives. Saturn is at home in Capricorn since it's its ruler, which makes these characteristics doubly important. So I think you can get the picture with what's happening, at least in the U.S. and a lot of countries actually around the world with their governments and the upheaval that's happening right now. Pluto is known as the Great Transformer. I like to call Pluto the jackhammer of the universe, because whatever it comes in contact with, it quickly dismantles it, dissolves it, and it also exacerbates a problem. Why? Well, it's always for our best, and Pluto does this. It does it for our highest good, although it may not feel like it at the time. It sure doesn't feel like it right now. Our inner and outer worlds are being dismantled for our highest good. Our lives, as we have known them, are ending. What will we create in their place? With Uranus and Taurus for the next 6 years or so, we will look at what we value and love the most in our lives and take it to the next level, to the higher level, to the higher octave that Uranus always requires. Whatever that might mean for us individually and collectively. With Saturn and Pluto retrograde, with the South Node joining the pack, it's telling us to rethink and restructure our lives, review the past, and clear our karma. We've got a lot of redoings and revisitings and clearing of karma and old issues and old wounds that are coming up right now, especially with this last full moon in Scorpio this past weekend. Sure, you might still be feeling its blow. There's a lot of things to surface, and Pluto is helping that. Saturn is telling us it's time to be the masters that we are. It's time to restructure our lives. We do live in the physical, and that requires us to manifest in the physical. I know I'm going through my own restructuring. As I mentioned on the previous show, I need to be moving home. I don't know where I'm going, but I do know that it's time. It's time for my astrology. It's time because it's time in what's happening right now in the general astrology. It's time because it seems as though my life does mirror the collective. And it's time. I could just feel it in my life that the life as I was living it just couldn't sustain itself. And I kept saying, this life needs to change. This life needs to change, and so it will. And so it is. Saturn and Pluto are transiting my second house in Capricorn. So everything is up for change for me, from my living situation to how I make money, to what I value, and to what I love. I know I'm not alone in this time of change. I'm sure that there's others out there that are listening that are going through similar things. And I think it's important for us to talk about what we're feeling and experiencing at this time. Because sharing lets us know that we're not alone. Even though I know for myself I felt very alone lately. And the sharing provides insights and ways to work through it and helps us heal and clear what we cannot bring with us to our new life. It's a time when we must put to use all of the spiritual principles that we've learned and muster up the mastery that we developed in 2018. Do you remember 2018? I'll never forget 2018. I don't know about you, but I call it mining your mastery is what I called it. And boy, did we. I know I did. So It prepared us for this year. The universe knows what it's doing. The universe, as I say, is on purpose. So we've been prepared for this time. You've learned the tools. You have what you need. Call on them and call on each other. Creating this new life is different from how we created other chapters of our lives in the past. Because how many lifetimes have we lived in this lifetime of change, right? And the old way was the masculine way. You know, make it happen, go out and get it, initiate the change. But that way won't work because we're in the time of the divine feminine. We allow things to come to us now. We learn to receive something that may be especially hard for women who have been indoctrinated in society to give and give without any consideration for self. We create by feeling. Feel it in your heart. If it doesn't feel right, it won't manifest. I've seen that numerous times in the last month in my life as I've been looking for places to live or situations that come up and then vaporize as soon as they appear. If it's not right, if it doesn't feel right, it won't happen. We're creating from the void, from what seems like nothing, from the room of creation itself. Everything is new. We can't go back to what was. So be patient and nurture yourself through these times. Eventually, the masculine and the feminine will balance with each other. But for now, we must really embrace these feminine principles. I came up with this analogy for these times. It's like we're astronauts on a spacewalk, and our tether to the ship, our lifelines, have just been severed. We're free floating in space, in the void, the darkness. There's no up or down, left or right. There's no directions. We cannot direct our movement. Things must come to us. It can feel like we're all alone, helpless, hopeless, and lost. We're in limbo, the space in between. For we truly are, as Greg Braden put it, walking between the worlds. This detachment is an analogy for our detachment from 3D, from the 3D world. We can't go back, and yet there's no land on which to step and no ship coming to save us. Because we are the ones we have been waiting for. In 5D, we are the true co-creators of our new world. It's up to us to create it. While we are on this journey in no man's land, it's imperative to stay out of fear. Follow your intuition and stay as emotionally balanced as possible. I talked about this in one of the very first shows of what Ian Lungold would talk about when he talked about the Mayan calendar and what would get us through these end times. I remember him saying that you have to pay attention. And that's needed more than ever now. We can't bury our heads in the sand. You really need to pay attention to the weather, to what's happening around you. Unfortunately, with the increase in shootings and random acts of violence and terrorism, we really need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to what's happening in our lives, to all of the signs that the universe sends us, to how we feel, and follow it. I know that I get these senses, and sometimes I don't feel it, and I don't follow it, and then boom, I'm like, okay, did you follow that? No. Okay, pay attention and follow it. Which brings me to the next thing, to follow your intuition. Follow your heart. You know what feels right to you. Follow that. It won't make sense. I guarantee it. The heart is not logical, but follow it. And set intention. set your focus. Know what it is you're going to create. Put it out there, because things are going to manifest quickly now. So stay as balanced as you can. Use all the principles that you've learned. If you go to the homepage of my website, there's a free download as tools for maintaining balance in a chaotic world. And there's numerous things you can do to help you to stay balanced. It's free. Just go to my homepage and joancerio.com and you can download it. And in next week's show, we'll talk about shamanic tools for these changing times to help you get through this time. So this is what Greg Braden wrote about in his book, Awakening to Zero Point, The Collective Initiation. The vacuum we find ourselves in is the 0 point. And we are experiencing the collective initiation now. The astrology says it. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction will perfect in January. This energy will continue into the early 2020s. We are in the void, the 0 point, the stillness, the nothingness from which everything comes. Like the blank ruin, we are all pregnant with potential. Anything is possible now, and everything. Keep that in mind. The question is, what are we being initiated into? Is this our equivalent of going through the ancient mystery schools? As Earth's magnetic field decreases, the time between thought and manifestation also decreases. Will we be able to manifest at the speed of thought? And what will that mean? I certainly hope that our frequency must hit a threshold such that our consciousness is increased enough to the point that we don't just manifest every thought that we have, if you know what I mean, but that we're very astute in watching every thought and thinking only the thoughts that will manifest what we choose to manifest. And will our frequency increase along with that of Mother Earth's in time for us to save her? And I'll have more shows about this, and I've had shows on this, about Earth rings and other people that have come on the show that say, yes, we can work together to mitigate some of this. So I'll have more guests coming on that will shed light on these questions. But for now, I'd like to open it up to callers with questions, experiences, insights, and information. But here's my disclaimer. I'm not here to heal, direct, diagnose, or otherwise treat any issue. The purpose of this is to share. And if I feel that you're off topic, I'll let you know, and I'll go on to the next caller. So I'm noticing that we don't have any callers at the present time, so I will tell you a little bit more about my karmic experiences, old wounds that have been surfacing, things that have been happening in my life that I've been paying attention to. As I stated in their last show or the show before, I live on a United Nation property in a mobile home park. And they decided to repurpose the land. And so everyone needs to leave. And unfortunately, there are many people here that can't take their homes with them. Many of them are senior citizens on fixed incomes. And if they can take their homes, it will cost thousands and thousands of dollars to move them. So for me, and I do work with indigenous peoples, and I feel that their traditional ways have a lot of merit, and I've even had them on the show, and will continue to have them on my show. But in the way that this is being done, it's not traditional. It's not with heart. And so I wonder if this is karmic for me, that if in a past life, perhaps I did wrong. And then that brings up questions, too, for myself that, all right, I understand karma, but do two wrongs really make a right? That it is okay, I'm not saying this is happening now, but just in a general case, that if in a past life someone killed someone, is it okay in a current life for when they come back together, the other person kills that person? I guess that could be an eye for an eye, a tooth for the tooth, like the Bible talks about. But questions like this have been coming up for me. Not saying I have an answer, but it makes me think. And maybe this is part of my clearing of my karma. I know that since I've been here, I've been doing a lot of ancestral clearing. And there have been childhood wounds that have been coming up. Wounds that go back on my mother's side. And it's no coincidence that Saturn went retrograde on the anniversary of my mother's passing, and it goes direct on the anniversary of on her birthday. So what is this that I'm reviewing right now? And then a cousin in the park, whose mother passed, had her funeral on the same day as my mother's passing, and that woman's first name was Mary. Mary for mother. And that didn't escape me either. And so a lot of the childhood wounds came up to be cleared, because as we're going into these higher frequencies, as we're creating this new world, they can't be packed. They can't come along with us. Because what's the old vibration just won't exist in the higher vibration. So I share these stories because it's not just my story. I'm sure it's similar to your story and other things you've been going through. And I know that as we work together on this, as we begin to wake up and see that we must work together on this if we are to survive, that things will change. You know, it gave me great inspiration to see a professor at Morehouse University. He's the richest black man on the planet. Give back to students and said that he's going to repay all their student loans. He's going to pay all their student loans off. To me, that was the first thing in a long time that has made sense. Because we're all connected. We're all family. We all should be taking care of one another. So, I guess no callers today. So I will then end the show and say that next week I will have Maya Starhawk, shamanic healer, to talk about shamanic tools for these changing times. And if you like what you hear on Earth Energy Forecast, You can donate by going to the homepage of my website, joancerio.com, JOANCERIO.com, and click on the donate button. You know, you can subscribe to Earth Energy Forecast on Apple Podcasts and in Stitcher. So, thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll join me next week and the following week for the astrology of June with June Valentine. Enjoy the rest of this Tuesday, and much love, everyone.